I want to say thank you to everybody who has joined us for the first in a series of conversations around pricing your artwork for the annual sale at Wesleyan Potters. This one is going to be on ceramics, and the panel tonight is myself, Mary Bramble Scott, and Linda Sershen, and Lyn Harper. And our moderator is Elise Catron. So thank you to everybody for attending. So tonight we're going to go over a few things around ceramics, which I think probably go across the board for both the fiber artists and the metal artists who are going to have their own separate presentations. But we're going to talk about what are the materials and techniques that you use. We're going to talk about what your experience as an artist is, what your philosophy is, how you approach your work, and how does that impact your pricing. And then we're going to look at some comparisons with other artists, whether those artists are student artists or whether they are professional artists out in the marketplace. So this is a conversation, so please feel free to raise your hand and ask a question or make a comment, or if you prefer, go ahead and put something in the chat. All right, so.
Mary?
Yes.
I just want to be sure you can hear me because I've been having some trouble with past Zoom meetings. You can hear me?
Hear you just right. Linda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So some rules of thumb, and why don't we ask Lyn Harper to walk through these rules of thumb, and I'd love to get some responses on these.
Okay, so the rules of thumb. Your work is unique to you. Use comparisons for guidance, but only you can value your work, product, and process. You know, some of us work super fast. Some of us take our time, you know, on details and textures and glazing. So those are all things to be thinking about. Be fair, but don't undersell yourself. You know, that's where that's the conversation we're going to have. You know, look at what other people are pricing things at, and, you know, and think about what you want for your work.
Yeah, Lyn, I think that one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm a brand new member, right? So I've gone into the gallery shop, and it seems to me like there is really high quality work in there for very low prices. So I think at some point there needs to be some reconsidering of what people are pricing as their standard prices, because if you compare it, and we will later on in this slideshow, you'll see your work is just wonderful in comparison to some professional potters who are out there.
That's right. That's right. And
but
because you're not a full-time potter doesn't mean that your work isn't worth or is worthy. We should be thinking about that.
If I can, I think we do have a tendency to underprice our work, but I think part of the issue there is concern over what the Wesleyan Potters market will bear. You know, so that's, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be charging more. I'm just saying I think that is what keeps perhaps a lot of us from asking what our stuff is, asking for, you know, whatever our stuff is really worth.
I agreed, and I think that's a big part of it too. Yeah, so I think we can definitely look at that, but I also think that you know, there are other shows. I've been in other shows. Lyn has been in other shows, and I don't know if you've been in other shows, Linda, but I do think that we don't, you know, I'm not sure about the message that sends, and if that's the message we want to send, but we can get further into that in later slides, definitely.
Okay. So make things across many price ranges, and that's a great thing to have. If people get to a place where they want to collect you, or they want to say, oh, they need another Mary Bramble Scott piece, but I'm tighter on my budget. I can bring home a $20 bowl instead of a $400 teapot set. So it's good to have a range of prices of your work, so that people have a selection of things to look at. I do that with my little houses. People just the prices tends to be low, and it's something that people can pick up and take home, and that works great. So it's not a $200 piece that everybody can afford.
Yeah, and I was at NCECA a couple of years ago, and I've always wanted a Stephen Hill piece, right? And so he had, there was a shop there with some of his mugs, and I picked up this mug. It was gorgeous. It was $150 for a mug. And so I looked around and I found other artists who were selling their mugs in my price range, which is around, the $40 at the top end, right? And so for the price of a Stephen Hill, I got 4 fantastically gorgeous mugs. And I'm glad I didn't do that just on his name, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a beautiful mug, I will say that.
Yeah, there's some things like that you just say, I'm going to spend $70 on that mug. I really want to look at how that person made that mug. And, I have so much appreciation for what they've put into it. So sometimes it's a treat to do that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what's the next one? How much would you be willing to let this piece go for without regretting the sale? That's a tough one, don't you think?
Absolutely. Linda?
Well, when I think about, I never think about, oh, I should have asked more, but I've had pieces that I wish I had held on to.
Right, which is the next bullet point.
But it's funny, I think I tend to price something that I aesthetically don't like as much less.
Yes.
And Ken, my husband, will look at my things going out the door, and he says, "Why are you charging this for that?" I said, "Well, because I really don't like it that much." And he says, "Oh my gosh, it's as good as your other work, but it's not, it's not something that's singing to you right now."
Yeah, I think that's a tendency, and I think that's something that we should learn not to do.
Right. That's a hard one.
Yeah, and Lynn and I have friend Matt Towers, and I would do the same thing, and Matt would say, "What the heck are you doing pricing this like this?" And I go, "I don't like it." And he goes, "Just because it's not your aesthetic doesn't mean it isn't someone else's."
Right.
It's well made. You
Right.
just didn't like how the glaze came out.
That's
so
right. Sometimes you're pushing your boundaries. You're kind of seeing where's things going to go, and those pieces are worthy pieces. It's just, you may have decided that that's not the direction you're going to go, or you learn something from it, and you can let somebody else enjoy it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So the last one, this one is really interesting because it takes a long time to get to learn this one. About if you love a piece, keep it. I've gotten so that if I'm on the fence about one, I like to keep them until the next year. So I will keep pieces that I'm still learning from, that I still want to refer back to, that I'm thinking that I love, and then I'll make a decision about it later on.
Yeah, I still regret I had a copper red teapot that came out perfectly copper red. And you guys know that copper red's not very easy to get. You'll often get white spots in it, or even sometimes blue blushes in it. And this teapot, I must have sold that teapot like 8 or 10 years ago. I still, in my mind, that teapot has gotten better looking over time. So yes, and if I had it, sitting here, it's like, I never used that teapot. I should just sell it. So.
Well, I remember when you had we were in the class where you made those beautiful soft green covered vases with the coral tops on them.
Yeah.
And you were adamant, no way, you're not getting it, because I wanted to buy it like right then and there.
And then after years, I did sell
You did, and I got it then. So I was patient, and it came around. So that was good. I think I learned a lesson from you that time. I thought, you know what, she's not ready to let that go yet.
Yeah.
And
So Linda, what do you regret selling with it? What pieces would you have loved to have kept?
Oh, I think there's more than more than
More
one.
than one.
Yeah, but I can't off the top of my head tell you something specific. Well, you know what? I actually, one of my very, very first pieces that I made as a student, where I was struggling at the wheel, actually, and John, oh my gosh, I can't remember John's last name, but he saw me struggling at the wheel. He was a member who used to make these huge pots.
Hampton.
No, not John Hampton.
Uglaski?
Florida now.
All right, well.
Anyways,
yeah.
So he said, please let me center that for you. And he did, but I made my first little pot. And I probably held on to it for about 10 years. And it had a lovely glaze that came out like what that rabbit fur sort of.
Yep.
You know, and I finally said, oh, I'm going to let this go. And it sold. And I still regret that piece. I wish I held on to it.
Yep. Yeah. Hayden Bayless told a story in a seminar that I took with him where he went into a potter's house and the house was filled with shelves and shelves and shelves of pots. And he gradually came to realize that all those pots belonged to that potter. That potter had made them. And he said, what the heck? How could you have so many of your pots? And I forget who the potter was, said that he kept the best piece from every firing. And so I don't know. I sometimes think that's a great thing. And other times I'd be like, I feel like a hoarder. I already have so many pots in my house, but yeah. So Linda, I have my very first pot that I ever made in college. It's teeny tiny. It's only about 4 inches high. But I kept it for some strange sentimental reason. It holds pens right now. So.
Hold on to it.
Well, all right. So moving on here, we're going to talk about some factors to consider, materials and techniques. So, there's a lot of things that go into making your pots. There's expenses that you incur. There's time, there's features, there's firings. So I don't know, Linda, you want to take the lead on this slide and just talk a little bit about, at Wesleyan, we're paying what?
Sure, Lyn or Linda?
$26? I'm sorry, Linda.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as far as expenses go, of course, there's clay, and you're right, at Wesleyan right now, depending on what kind of a clay you're getting as a member, you're spending between 26 and, I don't know, maybe 35, I'm not sure, for porcelain, for Tom Coleman porcelain. And, glazes, well, for us, they're part of what's covered, I guess you'd say, by our dues, am I right?
Right.
Yeah, and I don't use decals or luster or underglazes, so I don't know what kind of a expense that
Yep.
Gets to be, but those are all kinds of things that have to be figured. Now, when you say gallery fee, I assume you mean the profit that the gallery gets?
Right.
Yeah.
And as members at Wesleyan, that's a pretty modest fee.
Yep.
In comparison to other galleries. I've
Absolutely.
been in galleries that take 50% or more, which is outrageous. how much are you going to be able to sell a mug for, and then have some gallery, if you sell your mug for $35 and the gallery takes, or you sell it for 30, because I can do the math better on that, and the gallery takes 50%, all your work has garnered you $15, which is not even minimum wage.
Right.
And when I'm thinking about pricing my pots, I mean, I start with, okay, this is the minimum I would want to earn for this pot. And then I have, like, the formula that lets me figure out based on that how much I need to ask for it in the gallery shop or in the sale in order to make that minimum, so I kind of do it backwards a little bit. And then, of course, there's the firing. What kind of firing are you doing? Are you doing it on your own, or are you doing it through someplace like Wesleyan Potters, where, again, the cost of that is in a way paid for by our dues? And how many firings you have to do. I mean, I'm famous for firing my pieces 2 or 3 times till I get the result that I want.
Right. So, some of I'm starting to see more decals and luster and underglazes being used at the pottery. And so most of those things people are purchasing themselves to, the underglaze decals from Sandbow and Lust, those tend to be like $10, somewhere between $6 and $10 a sheet. Luster is like $35 for an ounce.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. And underglazes, depending on the colors, those run, I've been using a lot of black underglaze, and a quarter of a pound of black underglaze is $60. So it's, as if you're, using the glazes, et cetera, that's in the gallery, that may not, be as much of an impact on you. But if you are, as I see quite a few people doing it, using decals and luster, you should be figuring that cost into your pots as well.
Right, exactly. Okay, so as far as the pot features go, I mean, I know for myself, size, small, medium, large. Again, when I'm getting ready to price my pots, I do kind of categorize them into those categories according to size. Multiple parts, lids, handles, surface treatment, right? I do a lot of surface treatment. Well, it's
with your glazes. Yeah.
Work, but it's surface treatment. It takes a lot of time to do that. And you have to figure all of that into how much time you're putting into each pot to help you come up with a price for that pot that's fair to you.
Right.
Set, more than one piece, that's kind of obvious. And then sculpture, I don't do much sculpture, so I can't speak to that, but I know they kind of are very time consuming, right?
Right.
Uniqueness, I mean, that is something that I know personally I do. The more unique a piece, the more I feel I need to ask for it or can ask for it.
And so, Linda, to that point, I work with a woman who bought as a present for a family member 4 blue mugs from a pottery up on Cape Cod. And she showed me online what the mugs were like, and because she went to the pottery, and in the pictures of the pottery, there were hundreds of exactly the same blue mugs. So this was obviously production pottery, and the fact that she spent $40 per mug for a production pottery piece that didn't even have a trimmed foot, sort of floor. I mean, I didn't say anything because those were a gift given with love, but in my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, that was a ripoff. So,
Okay, and then as far as mixed media, right, our cane, wood, metal parts such as handles or lids, and added alternative parts such as a tray or a storage box.
And like
okay.
Mary, you can
right.
spend
Your beautiful
huge amount of time on a handmade wooden box for your teapot sets.
right. Yeah.
and trays.
And trays, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I see people like, I think it's Scott that somebody does lids made out of wood.
That's Scott.
That is Scott? I mean, what a lot of work to turn those on a lathe and have them fit and look so beautiful and sand them down, etc. I mean, that definitely is a gorgeous added feature.
Right.
All right, so let's move on a little bit here to things that you should consider about yourself, the artist. Lynn, want to take the lead on this one?
Okay.
I don't want to talk all the time.
You're so good at it, but let's talk about this. Let's talk about, I mean, your experience as a ceramic artist. Now, I had been working in art for 25 years before I came to ceramics. So I had a big background, and I, not that I jumped in and was great, but that's something to think about. But I also think, sometimes it doesn't matter how long you've been spending as an artist, or a ceramic artist. If you've got, if the quality is good and the product is, is pleasing, I think that it's, somebody who's been working 40 years in clay, somebody who's been working 5 years in clay. If it's a beautiful mug, it's a beautiful mug.
Right.
But there are some things that you can tell that a very experienced person has done. Some, lids that fit beautifully. Teapots that pour wonderfully. You can tell a great glazing, a great foot. So there are some things that you can look at and say, you know what, I would probably take a beautifully made teapot, but then I'm thinking, well, what about Japanese teapots, which are so simple and look so deceptively simple?
Yeah, and I also think, Lynn, one of the things that, regardless of whether you are a professional potter in the marketplace or you are someone who devotes all your time to ceramics when you aren't working, right? Your spirit is in that. But it's also not just, like I'm ridiculously fanatical about the foot on my pot. It has to be perfect, right? But I've looked at pots that have very, crudely done feet, but the difference is that they're intentional.
Yep.
There's intent around what's been done there. And so you can tell that was a choice by the artist to make the foot that way. And so that raises that to a level of not being someone who is just a hobbyist. It's somebody who's actually thinking through the steps and making these clear decisions. And, I see that all the time in the pottery. And that's, one of the things that, when I look at the mugs on the shelf there, I go, oh my gosh, I would pay, these are a steal, right?
That's right. Well, I guess, all right, so moving on, how long did it take you to make the piece? I sometimes come back to that. If I'm doing porcelain cups with the wax resist, where I spend, a couple hours on a mug or a cup, I know that there's just no way that I'm ever going to get, an hourly wage out of this object. So I kind of have to look at that as I love doing it, and I try to get a reasonable price for it. But I might cut down on some things, on time for some things that are for the show, or I guess that's something. Are we going to talk about venue, where we're selling at some point?
We had that, we took that out,
Oh,
but we can definitely put it back, it's definitely worth talking
right.
about.
Well, but maybe now is a good, because
Yeah.
like Linda said, there's a price. Wesleyan Potters is sort of known for having more affordable ceramic pieces and things. People come to us because they can get, really great work and not spend, $200 for a bowl. You can get a great bowl for $60 or $70.
Mhm.
But you take that same piece down on the shoreline here, and boom, it's doubles its price. They take a little bit more commission, and they may be more stringent in the jurying in or the aesthetic that they're looking for. But there's a thing about where you're selling it to.
I
We
have
have
a question.
Yeah.
How would you approach a shop? Or, I've never sold in a shop. I don't really want to do the farmers markets or the big craft fairs, but I would rather do a small shop or a gallery, and but I'm not sure how to approach them. Do you send in slides? Do you walk in the shop?
I always start with either an email, or I go down to a place. I kind of look at shops where I think I would like to have my work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have a conversation with the person there. Are they the manager? Are they the people who were curating the things for the shop? So many of the times they're hungry for having outside artists in their shops.
Yeah.
Some places will have online, they'll tell you exactly how to submit things. If you go to, you Google the place and you see, this shop in Essex, they want to see, 6 slides of your work. They want to see your bio. And then you have a conversation with them after that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've done it just where I've gone into a shop, little, semi-gallery type place, and had a conversation with the owner, and the owner said, well, I'd like to see some of your work. And I said, oh, I have some in the car.
Exactly.
Let me get it.
Exactly.
And so, and I've actually sold the pieces from the car then and there by just, having them. And so, it can be done. You just have to be, have enough chutzpah. And, maybe that's something that we do is develop, I think what Lyn is talking about is more common than my experience of just going in and chatting, but maybe we can actually do something about how do you set up that kind of a resume or a bio, etc., so that you have a professional quality to your work.
And you should also have a price point at that point too, or do you discuss with the manager or the gallery owner what they think your work is worth?
I think that goes both ways. I think you should have an idea in your head. You should look around their shop. You should see what things are selling for. I've had galleries say, no, I could get twice as much for that. But most of the time, I think you need to go in with a price, and most of the time they'll say, you have to know what their cut is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do that math in your head and say, okay, I can't sell this mug for less than $40 if you're taking 50%. And that leaves you with $20, which is crazy.
Right.
But I think, you know, to circle back to Linda's point, where there's an expectation at Wesleyan Potters of having access to art for a relatively reasonable price. And, you know, I kind of, my husband, Lyn's husband is in music, my husband is in theater, and my husband hates Broadway because he believes theater should be for the people and that it should be affordable to everyone.
Oh.
And so when he, you know, he usually does a couple of plays each summer, they're done outside and they advertise them outside and anybody can come. And so, you know, he's not making a living off of these, he's making a living off of teaching. But, you know, that's another part of your philosophy is how are we, you know, is your art to be shared with people? And, you know, we've, Lyn and I have both sold at the University of Hartford annual sale, and they're almost always students looking for presents for the holidays for their parents. And so you want to give them the opportunity to have something wonderful for mom and dad, right?
But I always find it interesting at that show too. There's always the smart collectors who run in there that
Yes.
first night, who know that they're going to get some great things.
Exactly.
And Wesleyan Potters is the same thing. The people, they know they got to get there that first weekend, and you know, and they know where to go. They know where to run in there and get the work that they want.
I just want to pose this. So what if, and I know, you know, Lyn and Mary, you both, and other people too, have told me more often than not that I underprice my work, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if I upped everything? And everybody at the pottery decided, okay, you know, we're all upping our prices this year. And say we upped them by, you know, 20%. What, I wonder what would happen. And do we dare encourage something like that?
I don't know. I mean, there's no lack of people walking out the door with $800 charges at the pottery. You know, outside artists are charging way more than we do.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice that. I noticed that that there was much higher prices.
Yes, and it's not like they aren't selling. The pieces are selling also.
Yeah.
And what does Wesleyan Potter take for the commission or the gallery fee?
For the members or the outside artists?
Well, actually both. One or the
It
other.
takes 30% for the members and 40% for outside artists.
Okay.
And 40% is pretty darn good for.
And some of the things that I've seen, you know, I think the artists that have been, the outside artists that have come in have accounted for that 40% in their pricing. And they definitely are making their money back. So this is all something to think about. It's not something that we necessarily have to act upon. Linda, you know, it might be worth saying, okay, we're going to do, you know, see what prices at, you know, 0.5% more will do, or 10% more, or whatever, just to test the waters, or maybe only choose certain pieces and test it.
Right.
But you know, some of your pieces are absolutely fantastic, and they definitely are a steal, as Lyn said.
Yes. Okay. So
I think we've gotten into this, your philosophy of art and craft already.
We're gonna go down the list here now. We're gonna your philosophy of art and craft. So this is one that we always get into. You know, why is that painting on the wall that took that person exactly the same amount of time as it took me to do that, or Linda to do that beautiful platter? Why is their piece 10 times as much as mine? Why can they charge $1,000 and craft only, gets a tenth of that because of its very, because it's functional, because we eat off of it.
Yep, there's been some knockdown, drag-out fights in my house
Yep.
with my brother. My brother's a painter, and my brother just, and he just says, what you do is craft. It's just craft. And I like, okay, I want you to go down to the Yale Art Gallery and visit the Greek and the all the ancient exhibits and tell the curators, this is just craft. Why are you bothering to show it? It's not, it's, art is, I think, very subjective. And so, there are plenty of paintings that I wouldn't say were art.
No, it makes me crazy. But
so where I might say the difference between art and craft is that example that I gave of the woman who bought the mugs in the production pottery shop where there were hundreds of blue mugs that look all the same. And, who was it? Somebody once said to me, if you can't make it well, make it blue. Because most people's favorite color is blue. And they'll go, oh, what a beautiful blue mug or bowl or whatever. And so, when I saw that photograph of the hundreds of blue mugs, that's what I thought of. So.
Right. Well, so I think we're back. Decorative or daily use is kind of this, the same thing as art and craft.
Right.
Don't you think? Well,
not necessarily, because I happen to have a philosophy that, probably it's a little bit on the Japanese side, where everything that you do or everything that you use in your home life should be meaningful and should be, it's a work of art to have that cup of tea, And so to me, decorative things are not as important to me as useful things that enrich your life.
Okay, I read that wrong. I was thinking of a decorative piece.
Right.
I get it. But you're meaning decorative as not to be used, just as to be fragile on the shelf.
Right.
Okay. Right. And that's something that we as creators need to pass on, express that to the customers. That's part of our job, is to talk about the meaning in these pieces and how, important and enjoyable it is to use handmade pieces in your life.
Great. And there's, what is his name? William Coppersmith, I think was his name. He passed away, but he wrote a book called The Handmade Life.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a really beautiful book if you get a chance to take it out of the library. It's about, he created a community, I think in Maine, and it's at a place that he named Dickinson's Ridge or whatever after Emily Dickinson, but he made these unbelievable yurts that were incredible, and then proceeded that everything that he used on a daily basis was handmade by him or one of his colleagues or friends. And that book really had a big impact on me. So it's worth a look if you're interested in that kind of thing.
Okay, and the last one is, do you have a following who comes specifically for your work? And that's something that we all need to do too, is keep up on your social media, keep up with your Facebook, let people see your process. I see.
Does everybody have an Instagram site?
What?
Does everybody on this call have an Instagram site?
No.
It is so easy to put up. You can photograph your work, put it up there. Everyone in the pottery should have an Instagram site, and everyone should be following everyone else in the pottery, and you build up a user base by that, by having, and that's super simple. You don't have to get out there and do much. You just take a
Yep.
photograph and upload it within a couple of seconds. But that,
I see David Frank is on here. He does an incredible job with, I'm not sure if it's Instagram, but I think on Facebook, about telling his story about how he's working, what's coming out of the kiln. And that really creates a community. It creates an interest in your work. You're getting to see how it's made. You're getting to see the process. You're getting, I love it. I love it with everybody. And you don't have to, what I like about Instagram is I don't have to say a lot. I can just,
right.
you know,
It's like you can put like 4 or 5 words. Yes. And I follow Lyn, and I think Lyn follows me. Yep. And I follow the pottery, and so you get to see pictures all along. And you know, so Mary Ruth said to me, "Did you post a picture of the masks that you made?" And yeah, I did. And I had a lot of people saying, "Oh, I have to stop by." And but you know, the idea of a following, and last year when I was behind the counter, people actually came in and said, "Can you show me where Linda Sershen's pots are? Or can you show me where Lyn Harper's pots are?" Right. And so you kind of get a name, which I think you then start to build a reputation off of that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's fun and wonderful to interact with people who have your work or are interested in your work. You're interested in their work. Sometimes I get pictures of people sending me where they've put a piece of mine in their house. I love that.
Yep. Yep, I had a man message me through Instagram saying, "I want 10 of your Christmas ornaments for next year." And then I had another person DM me saying, "I love the mug you made because I have very big hands and it fits perfectly in them." So that all makes you feel really good about your work because you know people are appreciating it. You're not doing it in isolation. You get different feedback beyond the feedback that you get inside of the pottery.
That's right.
So we've got 15 minutes here, and we have a bunch of comparisons to go through. And so why don't we start with mugs here? So one, Matt Towers over at the University of Hartford very kindly gave me what he considered an old listing of prices for student work. And by student work, he's talking about kids who have had, you know, 2 semesters to 4 semesters worth of work of practice. And so I've added what he put for pricing in here. So you should see, you should never go below that price. Those prices are like super low. So, you know, if a University of Hartford student can sell a mug for $30 and they don't know, you know, what they're doing, they've never touched clay before, and they've only done it for, you know, maybe 6 months, you who have come up with some really beautiful objects and mugs should not be going below that. Linda and Lyn, you agree with that? And
I
please feel free to disagree with us.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess I do agree.
But I think what we've tried to do with these slides is to give you a range of what different artists are doing in terms of pricing. Like this first one is by Ryan Greenheck, who's out of Philadelphia, and his work sells like hotcakes, but he's still charging $45 for a mug.
And so well, and it's mostly porcelain, right? And it's so well done. One of my favorite mugs in the world is one of his.
Mm-hmm. Right. So he's not, you know, he's not asking a huge amount.
Yeah.
For that. I mean, it might seem a lot to us, but in the scope of things, it's not. Ben Carter, he uses a lot of underglazes. $60 seems like a lot to me for that mug, but it's not necessarily my aesthetic.
No.
And Martha Grover, if you guys, when you guys do set up your Instagram accounts, what you can start to do is follow big name artists. And when you follow those folks, you get to see their process, and you get to see how they work, and you get to see their finished product. So Martha Grover pumps out hundreds of these mugs a month, I think, because you can see her loading her kiln with them. They're beautifully made. She's got this process down to a science, and she has her own set of really lovely glazes and all of her pots. And Lynn and Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, I think she works off of the concept of a orchid, right?
Oh.
I think that's what her thinking is, and especially if you look at some of the bowls, and she puts these little black dots in various bowls that that represent the pestils or whatever those are, the center of flowers. But 65 is a little bit high. I didn't go. We talked about this, the three of us, about kind of going mid-range here, because there are people out there who are charging, like I said, that the Stephen Hill or the Omi Hara, they're charging like $150 to $200 for mugs.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I think one of my favorite shows that we went to at Antica, I think you were there, Lynn, but there was a show of tea bowls. And those tea bowls started around $3,000 each.
Wow.
And went up to $10,000 for a bowl. So,
Yeah.
So that's mugs. Oops. Linda, want to take small bowls? Oh, we'll have you take big bowls too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not too sure what you really would like me to say, but you're saying, so a University of Hartford student for $20. Now on my small bowls, and to me a small bowl is, maybe 5 inches wide.
Like an ice cream bowl.
Like an ice cream bowl, or maybe a cereal bowl.
Yep.
20 is what I charge.
Mhm.
And, so again, maybe I need to up that a little bit. I'm not familiar with these potters. So Mary, I may hand this back to you if you know these potters more than,
Well, if you notice, Martha Grover had the most expensive mug, but she has the least expensive bowl. And so the other two, I mean, what is Ben Carter thinking? $46. Why couldn't it be 45 or 50? 46, I mean, he could have done 46.75. But I think what you do, Linda, on a small bowl, and what I've seen from many artists in the pottery, it is much more elaborate or more thought through decoration. Like the Ben Carter one here almost looks like a commercial bowl. So, I don't know, what do you think, Lynn?
Bowls are tough. And I think I like that Ben Carter bowl, and I think that it would be interesting having cereal or something out of it and seeing the little design at the bottom. I think that the pottery, you're not going to get more than $20 for a plain little bowl. And because I've put them in every year because I love throwing bowls. I don't know why, and I like throwing sets of bowls. And I think I have a question about that. You know, when you have a set of 4 matching bowls, you know, do you charge $80 for that set of bowls, or do you knock it down?
No,
What's that?
no,
Who was that?
it's Eileen.
Oh,
Yeah, but you know, the thing is, I sold bowls at the pottery, right? And they weren't that complicated. They had some little decoration on the rims and stuff. And, you know, they maybe had 3 glazes on them. And I put them in for $25, which I thought was a reasonable price. And they all sold.
oh,
So I don't know why a Linda Sershen bowl or a Lyn Harper bowl at $25 wouldn't sell.
It definitely would. She's terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eileen.
So, you know, but you know what we're talking about here is, you know, very personal to you. So, you know, this is all just food for thought.
yep.
And, you know, it gives you an idea of what to think about when you do your pricing. And if you maybe take a couple of little risks with your pricing, you don't have to go whole hog. You know, I don't know how many little bowls you'll have, Linda, but, you know, maybe take 30% of them and sell them for $5 more
Yeah,
and see how it goes.
sounds good to me.
Okay. Plates. Now these plates are fairly elaborate.
Yeah.
So University of Hartford, $20 to $50, depending on the size.
See, now here's the question. Is that a plate that you can hang on the wall? Is this a wall piece plate, or is this a purely functional plate where you're going to have
All
dinner?
of these that are pictured here were functional plates. And I
Yeah.
actually have, I mean, I have a little collection of plates that from artists that I bought at Antica and things like that, that I could hang them on the wall because they're all really beautiful, but I do use them to eat off of.
Yeah, and I tend to buy plates, one-of-a-kind plates from artists, and they're on the wall also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like if I have folks over for dinner, I give them each a different artist. And so it's a very kind of eclectic mix on the table, which is a lot of fun.
Yep.
But, you know, I think each one of these has some, a lot of work, like Posey's is, I know she does this same thing a lot, but $60 is not so bad compared
No.
to Julia Galloway 125. But anyway, we'll move on.
What else do you have? Oh,
We have lidded pots. So University of Hartford, 20 to 75. So depending on the size, guys, you know, use that University of Hartford student number as, I'm not going to value my work at the same price as somebody who's only done this for 6 months, right?
right.
And some of these are pretty simple, like the Carl Borgeson's pretty simple. We got a little more complexity in the other two, but I don't know, the Susan Dewsnap at 140 seems a little high to me, but
Is that a
what it'll
really small?
Yeah. Is it this big or is it this big?
I think it was like 6 or 7, between 6 and 7 inches high.
Oh, so it's tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not quite sure how that was done, whether that was done with who is it that does that now? Uses his sister's Cricut cutter to use as masking.
Oh, I use a Cricut cutter to mask things.
Oh, nice. Nice. Okay. So, this is the full range. I don't know if there's many covered pots that are sold during the holiday sale.
We have some, and I seem to think, I don't know what you think, Linda, they don't sell as well.
I agree.
And
Um,
I think you're right, because I don't think people have the idea that they would use it for something.
right, and because they're an object that has to be out. It's
Hmm.
so you have to have a place
Yep.
for it.
Yep.
You buy it for yourself is one thing, but to give as a gift for somebody to have to place it in
Right.
their house, they're a little tougher.
So here's big bowls, Linda.
Okay.
Well, University of Hartford student, $30, but you have to figure these folks, what the big bowl to them is not the same thing as a big bowl to Linda Sershen,
Right.
right? Because they're not throwing that large yet.
Yeah.
But starting at the lowest I could find for a commercial sale at $100, and mid-range going up to $160.
Hmm.
So
So how big are those bowls?
I think that most of them were about 12 inches or larger wide.
Okay.
They're obviously not as tall as yours, right? So, and you do some added things with your bowls. You add some handles and things like that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So you need to take that into consideration. Teapots. And I found some teapots out there for like $1,000 just for the teapot, not for teapot and
Right.
cups.
Well,
But
let's talk about, there are people who are teapot collectors,
mhm,
and that's a whole different range. And we have people that come into the pottery during the sale, and that's what they want to see. They want to see what teapots we have.
mm,
Um, so you get into that collecting mode, and
right.
you you can charge more for that. And
Right.
plus, it's a very complex thing to make.
To have a teapot work well, it takes a lot of experience and talent to not have it go glug, glug, glug when
Right.
you're pouring, and to make sure that the lid stays on and is tight.
Yeah.
That's tricky as well. The Doug Peltzman one here has a side handle, which I'm never really comfortable with side handles, but that one looks like it's big enough that it would be easy to use. I love Doug Peltzman's work, but side handles always make me feel like I'm going to drop it for some reason
But
or
that's
another.
just a beautiful piece of sculpture. To
It
me,
is. It's gorgeous.
they're-
Yeah,
they're-
it's
yeah.
gorgeous. And I once the Victoria Kristen is and this was Ryan Greenhack who said this. Ryan Greenhack said, "Oh, teapots with over-the-top handles are just passé. Nobody wants them." And so I don't think that's true. I think
I
that's
like over the
beautiful.
top handles.
Yeah, and I think this is a beautiful little teapot.
No.
And the one in the center, Antonella Chimati, that's just gorgeous in the way that piece has been altered.
Yep.
So a lot of work went into all three of these. To me, that the price range on those seemed sensible. I don't know that we have folks who make that many teapots, but there was a teapot show that I didn't see, and I think that looked pretty spectacular from the photographs that I saw.
It was. But we
Yeah.
don't, I think we don't make a lot of teapots there.
Yeah, well, they're so time consuming, and they have to be nursed through the whole process so that, the spout doesn't crack and fall off.
Yeah.
And, it's when you're done, you've got the body, the lid, the knob, the handle, and the spout. You're usually talking a minimum of 5 pieces. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then Lynn, you wanted to touch on sculpture.
Well, I think it
So,
was the same conversation about
right.
art versus craft. What happens when, you're making a sculptural object out of ceramics, and you can see the price goes way, 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 way up. Um,
Yeah. And I think both Lynn and I had the opportunity to meet Kathy Butterly,
uh-huh.
and her pieces are about the size of a mug,
Right.
right?
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. So she is charging this price for pieces about the size of a mug. But I think what she said was, well, she doesn't sell very many. So if she does sell one, she wants to make, as much as she can. And of course, she's selling in a gallery, which is probably taking 50%,
That's right.
right?
She's in art galleries as opposed to ceramic galleries, and that makes a
Mhm.
difference too.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she does a lot of these little sculptures. And she has a great reputation. She's a New York artist, right? And Beth Kavner, I don't know if many people know her. Her pieces are really large. But I found this price range for her. I would love to know
I
what
was
she
gonna
sold for
say, yeah, let's
$153.
find that piece because I've
I
never
know.
seen one.
And
I know it was research price ranges for
Yeah.
sculptures and
did she make a cast out of
No.
that? I mean, is that
oh
that ceramic? Is that fire?
Yep.
yep.
Or did she make a mold?
No.
So she does these one of a kind pieces that are huge, and she builds them on metal armatures.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she's done, she cuts them apart. And Lynn, correct me, you guys, if I'm wrong. She cuts them apart, hollows them out, and then puts them back together when they're at sort of
Yes.
just before leather hard state, so that she can keep the form. But they're huge. They're pretty much all animals that are some in
Yeah.
distress. Yeah, I mean, it's not something I would
No.
have in my house because it's just like she has this one that I think sold for a couple of $100,000, and it's a pretty famous one of is it a sheep being eaten by a snake or something that hangs from the ceiling,
Yeah.
and somebody bought it and put it over their hot tub.
Oh God.
And I was like, yuck, I wouldn't want to look at that happening all the time.
Well,
And then this little guy is about the size of a mug as well.
and we occasionally have outside artists at the Pottery who do fun figurative sculpture like that in ceramic and other things, and those pieces sell, and they could be more than $200.
Yep.
There was an artist last year, I don't know what their name was. They weren't working in ceramics, but they were doing figurative pieces that were fun, that just made you smile, and they sold a few of them.
Right. Right. So yeah, I mean, there's a number of people at the Pottery who do ceramic sculpture, and they do beautiful work. I don't know that I saw any for sale, but it definitely, like Adam's work, could be
Right.
could be sold for definitely a decent price, right?
Right.
More than this, because they're much bigger and more complex, etc.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think last thing we have is we have a couple of reference materials. There's a good article that Lynn found. There's Pottery Making Illustrated, How to Pricing Your Work. It's obviously 3 years old, so and then this was really hysterical. This is it's a British Old Forge Creations, where you can download a spreadsheet and you can put all your materials into it and give yourself an hourly wage, and it will shoot out a price at the end for you. But you could have it in dollars or you could have it in euros. And so, but definitely all of this is so subjective, but I think it's worth rethinking your pricing and maybe taking a couple of risks.
Yep.
Do we have any other questions or any comments from anyone? Was this helpful in any way to you?
It was helpful for me.
Great.
And yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Oh, our pleasure.
Good.
Susan, you had a question?
I just wanted to tell you that I really enjoyed this. I'm actually at the studio now listening to you guys. And it's very inspiring and very funny too. I appreciate you making me laugh out loud. So thank you so much for doing this. I really learned a lot.
Oh, our pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I'll be back next year when I can walk and I can drive.
Oh,
Good night,
awesome.
Eileen. Be well.
Yeah.
Well, I just ended up from Amazon a 60 mesh sieve because the other places are too expensive. I
Oh,
have to do my own glazes because I can't fire being inactive for a year.
oh.
Wow.
Well, hope to see you back soon.
I intend to be.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you, guys. Really
Bye-bye.
appreciate it.
Hi, Eileen.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap if there's nothing else. And we had a lot of fun putting this together for you. And please do attend the others as well, the one on fiber and the one on metals if you can. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.